Good morning, everybody. Here we are. It is already the second week of December. We've pretty much got 4 days this week because, of course, we got a bonus public holiday on Friday. So, ka-ching, we'll take it.
And you say the government doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, exactly. They gave us a holiday. We should be very grateful. We should be grateful, peasants. We should all be like, thank you, King Cyril. What would we do without your benefit, your benefaction and your kindness and your
benevolence?
Yeah, your benevolence and your patronizing of how hard we work to watch a Rugby World Cup, because that's of course what we earn. That's how we earned.
We watched so hard.
By going, yay!
Hercules, Cyril on the post.
Yeah, Hercules. Anyway, how are you, Bakh'abantu? What's up?
I am okay. I am just okay. I'm just raring for the week. I'm actually pretty well rested. I am surprised at myself. Yeah, and I was looking in the mirror as I was showering, Gareth. I'm like, I think I need to do something about this weight thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Not a good look.
It's too late.
A good look.
If you wanted to sum up the body, it's too late now. Forget about that.
I could get on that Ozempic. Who knows?
Well, at this point, all you want to do is not make it worse, right?
Yeah. Basically, like everything else in the world. You just try to keep it where it is.
Correct. Don't get even fatter is the best thing I could suggest. That's where I'm at the moment. It's like I also, oh my God, I must tell you, I had the funniest. So I was in Cape Town, obviously, last Wednesday, Thursday. Well, I arrived there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and came back Saturday. Friday afternoon, I went for lunch with a couple of people who I had to see there, and we were sitting in the sun, but it was overcast, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, oh well, it's fine. I mean, I didn't put on a whole lot of sunblock or anything. I got so fucking burnt. I was red. Hello, Leigh-Ann.
Oh, hello. Go on.
Sorry. Apparently, Ryan sent you the wrong link for the show this morning, so that was nice of him.
Yeah,
I think he's trying to keep you off the show on purpose. I think he's actually got to.
Obviously.
No. But anyway, so I was sitting in the sun on Friday, and even though it was overcast, I didn't realize how quickly I was burning. And I promise you, by Friday evening, when I got back to the hotel, I was like, holy shit, look at me. I looked like, you can still see a little bit of it today. I was so red for the rest of this weekend.
We're wearing shades because you have a tan line.
Yeah, I got like raccoon eyes. But it's the weirdest thing because it's a Trump. I look like I look like him. I'm orange and I've got these very white eyes like he does. I'm not wearing makeup and he does, right? So it just looked. It looked so terrible. I was so embarrassed. For Saturday, I looked especially bad.
Oh, Gareth, don't worry about your looks anymore. Come on, how old are we? We worry.
I know.
We worry about things like whether our hips are functioning, whether we wake up in the morning. How much money we've wasted on spinach all our lives, and if it's worked. It's just the smaller things,
But you know what? It's the embarrassment isn't from people seeing me and thinking I look funny, which is, I've always looked funny. I don't need a tan or the lack thereof to be the biggest problem I have. And frankly, I look better even when I'm burnt than I do when I've had no sun, like this milky, pasty white, that's a terrible thing. But part of the embarrassment comes from how many times we even had Dr. Mark on the other day telling us about wearing sunblock and not going into the sun between X and Y. I'm like, you dumbass.
Yeah, I know.
That's why I'm embarrassed. I'm like, so how stupid are you to go out into the sun and sit there when you're at the coast?
It's like the sun has existed for your whole life, and yet you still haven't learned. It's the same as sometimes, as a woman, you'll be in a public bathroom sometimes, or in a social situation, and someone will go, oh, sorry, do you have a tampon for me? And it's like, all us women have battled with this thing for most of our lives every single month, yet we're still surprised when it happens.
Well, you'll soon have soon enough, they'll stop asking you because they'll go, that old crone doesn't have any.
Menopause.
Well, listen, there's no sign of that stopping. So if I could probably still bear children if I oh, by the way.
Well, that's exciting. What does that C is for coffee and also for
yes.
That's a great mug. I love that. Mug. That's so superb. That's fantastic.
There we go.
All right. So we have so much to talk about this morning, and we've got Dr. Hanan on a little bit later on. We've got a really interesting guest who I think you're going to love. We've got a Beyond the Scoreboard sports recap, super bets, loads of things. So I wanted to get these things out here quickly because, I wasn't really at home for most of the weekend, and then I'm on the neighborhood WhatsApp group. And there are two interesting things that happened before I even went down to Cape Town. And the first one was we have a crazy neighbor who I love, not right next door to me, but she's in the estate. I love this woman because they moved in a while ago, and I don't even think I've met them properly. But she clearly has the best sense of humor. And it's amazing how one person with just a great sense of humor can make everyone in the neighborhood feel good. So what she did, she's got like this big green teddy bear, like the Grinch color, and it's wearing a Christmas hat, and like sometimes it's wearing sunglasses, and she puts him in like different situations on the corner because she's got like a corner property. So on the corner, as you drive in, this bear is like one day it's braaiing, the next day it's under an umbrella with sunglasses on, the next day it's in a tent because it's raining. The next day, it's ironing something on an ironing board, and it's just the most cool thing. I'm just going to see if I can't find you. I'm not going to put it up on the screen because isn't it cute? Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? They do have kids, which here he is in his tent.
Right? Oh no! Come on.
That's his tent. No. I love it. Here he is, like tanning on the.
Oh, I love this.
Board. And then, every other day he's doing all these cool things. Here he's in the laundry basket. And every day he does something different. And I just love this. I think, and then some of our neighbors take pictures of themselves with him. So there's this dude with him. I think that's quite cool. So at this time of year, you also see which of your neighbors are really grinchy and which are not. And I'm putting up my Christmas stuff tomorrow. Which is, I think, the best day to do it because you've got 12 days before and 12 days after, like I said. But I feel a bit bad because some of them have had their lights up for a month already. And then they look at my house and there's nothing going on here. And they're like, oh, that grumpy old bastard. But I'll be joining the party tomorrow.
Are you going to do it yourself? Like DIY?
Oh, well, who else is going to do it, Bakh'abantu? No, I'm going to hire someone in to do my decoration.
Yes, Gareth, like a civilized human being. People don't know how to do stuff anymore. You pay someone.
Look on your phone and scroll down to like Christmas Chris, in brackets, lights. Phone him.
Yeah, right. Exactly. There probably are people. You could probably hire someone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you to all the firefighters. I didn't know that there was a fire. Siklolile says... beautiful weather in Cape Town. We had a fire on Table Mountain yesterday. Thank you to the firefighters who did their hard work and managed to put out the fire. Shit, that's interesting. Sikolile just letting us know.
Gareth burned so hard that he put Table Mountain on fire.
Fire to the mountain. Jesus, well, I'm not the only thing that burns in Cape Town. And getting our first proper rain in the Waterberg in Limpopo. It's been pouring all night. Well, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it has... Up north, up here in this part of the country, it's been soft, lovely rain, continuous, which has been lovely. Yeah.
Good morning, says she is lit. Gareth, first of all, I need a DNA test to prove that you and Grant, who was our guest on Friday, aren't related. Secondly, please have Grant and Gord together on a show. Well, I saw Gord in Cape Town, and he was actually like a little bit put out that we had Clean Cut Scully Grant on the show. Because he reckons that a lot of and that's why I mentioned Hard Eddie. He reckons a lot of his hard work with Eddie and making Eddie a real character, this guy's just come in and taken some of it. That's what I suspect. Gord hasn't said so, but I don't think he likes him. So I don't think they'll come on the show together.
Odd Eddie. But like, have you seen this guy, Leigh-Ann? He literally looks like Gareth. Like with tattoos.
Well,
imagine if Gareth like grew up in like in 4 ways, basically.
As a boot.
As a boot. This guy has tattoos. He looks exactly like Gareth Cliff.
Right. Fundo says, Gareth, you saw they are busy renovating the Durban beach. No, that's good news. Let's hope so.
Listen, I'll believe it when I see it.
It used to be very nice. I mean, also there's that lovely promenade in Umhlanga that's very nice. But now, I mean, they've got to actually clean up the beaches themselves, and I think they're going to feel the sting of a very, very muted, rather, let's say, tourist season down there, because they haven't been looking after it.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky says, here in Australia, it's like a competition. These guys go way over the top in decorating their house, their roof, and their yard with lights and other Christmas decorations. Well, I mean, it's like that movie which I watch every now and I mean, I haven't watched it for a couple of Christmases now, but it's just the best. It's called National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got like Chevy Chase, and it's just so funny. And it's like it used to be a tradition that I'd watch it with the family every year. And this guy in the movie, he just wants to give his family the best Christmas. That's all he wants. He just wants really cool
Chevy Chase, isn't it?
Yeah, and he does everything, and like he tries to decorate the house, and he like blows up the substation, and his house like almost falls to pieces, and he falls off the roof, and then there are like vermin in the tree, and like everything he does is just disastrous. But I mean, it is like a really beautiful story, because you see this dad who's just trying to make everybody's Christmas special, you know. So the other thing that happened in the neighborhood, and I want to know how I should deal with this. Oh, look, Leigh-Ann, we can see you. Your laptop was so dirty that we couldn't even see you.
I just realized now. Sorry, I was like, why is it not focusing? I'm also house sitting, so I have a barking dog.
Okay, mine is luckily asleep at the moment. But there's one other thing. I need your advice on this, both of you. So last week, someone came to see me, and she drove in, and she said to me at the door of my house, she's like, you know that your security guards asked me for Christmas money. I was like, what are you talking about? So she said, as she drove in, and these are the words, and I have no reason to believe she made this up, right? So she goes, the guy comes up to the window of her car with a like box, and on it is written with a ballpoint pen, like Happy Christmas or whatever. And then he says to her, he looks at her, and I don't know which security guard it is, but I have my suspicions because there's this one guy. Anyway, he goes, why you never give me? Those are his words.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Why? This is a visitor. She doesn't live in the estate. She's come to see me. This guy's probably doing this to everyone. And
this
he goes,
is a full sentence, by the way. Why
you
goes, never give me?
Why you never give me? So, so I'm like, this is really not acceptable. You don't panhandle with people who are coming to visit somebody. I mean, she has no relationship to the security guard. He does nothing for her. She's never seen him before. And now, what, she must make his Christmas better with money? It's just
it doesn't matter.
When you think about, hang on, when you think about what's really wrong with South Africa, because that's actually a hugely instructive thing that I'm telling you the story of now, because the reason we are a poor country and we have so many poor people in it is that it's not like if you gave that guy $1 million, the next week he'd be at your door asking for the next $1 million. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That's why you cannot solve a poverty of the mind with money. If someone is mentally impoverished, if they have a poverty of the mind, there's no amount of money that can cure that. That's why you see tenderpreneurs, government ministers, and crooks like the Guptas and all of those sorts of things. And you see that they they're greedy, but they don't understand money, and they don't understand the relationship that money has to value. Because if that guy understood it, and look, he's a security guard, but our security guards are actually, most of them are really smart guys. They're not idiots. These people have an education. They're not like, it's not a charity job, if you know what I mean. So for this guy to think it's okay, and forget about the politeness, but think about that sentence, why you never give me. So in other words, if we take him at his word, why do you never, I mean, it's the first time he's met her, but you never, why do you never give to me? Right? I'm like, this is unfortunately why that guy is always going to be poor, and why we live in a country, and it's not even entitlement, it's much worse than that. So now I want to know what you think about that, and I want to know what you would do about it, and whether you think I'm over analyzing it. Because then I put on the group, on the neighborhood group, I'm like, guys, can we please stop our security guards from panhandling when visitors come here? That's not on. What do you think?
I mean, firstly, for the first thing that got me, and yes, everything that you say is I agree with, but the first thing that gets me is just pure job pride and professionalism. It doesn't matter what job you have, you need to be professional about it. Firstly, you have a job. Trust me, I've been jobless. I know what it's like. I've been jobless for many years at times. When you do have that job, you live it, and you take it to the highest level of professionalism that you can give. Whether you are washing out a dustbin or you are a CEO, it doesn't matter. You don't ask for personal things when you're on the clock. You do your job, the job that you thankfully have. You know?
You know, I see like he's saying English is not his first language. No. But he's communicating what's in his head. Trust me. He genuinely feels. So what do you say, Bakh'abantu? What do you say to this?
Oh no, this stems from this culture that we have in South Africa that you just nailed on the head, Gareth, that we want to get. We don't associate work with getting money. We don't want to put in the hard work. We just want handouts. And it's kind of what the government has instilled in our people right throughout our short history. And the apartheid regime to a certain extent.
What they did, and I'm not making that usual like history excuse that people do. It's like, you know, everything can be blamed on apartheid. I hate that shit. But that government did manage to infantilize a lot of people.
Yeah.
They infantilize, and they put them in a relationship where this one is like the proxy parent for this one. A lot of it was racial. Obviously, that was the government's whole reason for existence. Their raison d'être, right, was that they made everything racial. But what they've actually done is they've created this parent-child situation with the government, so that the government's your parent and you are the child, and then every other person in your life who has more than you must be your parent and you must be the child. So it's not, this doesn't stem from like bad family values or any of that shit, or like the inability to manage your finances or stuff that we're trying to teach people at all ages in South Africa because we don't have a lot of financial literacy. But this is different. This is a perverse relationship with everything from the get-go. I think government has a lot. They share a lot of the blame here, right?
And here's a question. Why should I give you? And this person probably doesn't have an answer. It's not an English problem. This is not like most people don't have an answer. Why should you get? The world doesn't owe you anything. You put in the work. If this person drives a car and you don't, it's the same. It's the same excuse that thieves use, Leigh-Ann, when they like, oh no, I'm stealing from Gareth because he has money, but he worked for it. Whether that looks like his family worked for it or he worked for it personally, but it's not. I don't understand why people have an expectation, a sense of entitlement to stuff that's not theirs.
So, I mean, there's interesting points being made here. So Carl says, I think it's great because the more people like this who exist, the more opportunities for people like me who work hard and take accountability for our own lives. Yes, but I do feel like this is a major existential question for us as South Africans, because we often hear in the news, and we hear commentators and supposedly these analysts who know so much about how South Africa works, right? You have tons of books written about it, is that our biggest problems are financial literacy, that people are that people don't have opportunities for employment, all that kind of thing. And those may be the realities on the ground. But actually, this attitude is right at the core of the problem. So we're diagnosing symptoms, but the disease is this. The disease is why you never give me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no matter the language, no matter the context, no matter the culture, it's a deep misunderstanding of the way life works, really.
Yes.
Woody says, it reminds me of the story where a guy received 100 Rand every week from somebody, and then one week he only received 50 Rand from the other man. He then screamed at the man for only giving him 50 Rand instead of 100. Yeah, well, that's it. Once you make someone dependent on you, which is precisely what the government has tried to do, and what the old government tried to do too, is they created these vassal states in the Bantustans. But in South Africa itself, they created two classes of people, and the one class was dependent on the other, right? It was like this feudal relationship, and that is ingrained. And of course, this is not a problem across the board for everybody, because we all know that this security guard, I even said at the beginning, he is not representative of all the others. They're actually, I mean, they're really cool people. We trust them with our safety here. But you don't go and panhandle from visitors. And I don't know what's going to happen to him, whether this guy will be disciplined or not. And frankly, it's none of my business. He's got a boss. He must report to his boss, and he must explain himself. But the idea that, and there are a lot of people like climbing on both sides of the story here. Some people saying, "Oh no, shame," but the poor guy probably doesn't have a lot of money. So what? How do you know? How do you know that that visitor doesn't have a lot of money?
Exactly. That's one thing that I've through financial difficulties and losing businesses and things like that during COVID, and the context doesn't matter. But I'll be at a robot, as we say in South Africa, or a traffic light, and someone is asking me for money. They don't realize that I haven't eaten that day. They don't realize that my debts add up to more than they would ever be able to repay in their entire lives with a steady job. That I'm actually physically poorer. And yes, I understand that I have a roof over my head, but it's not mine. It's owed, and I have to pay that back for the rest of my life.
Leigh-Ann, that is something that actually resonates pretty close to home. Like, I remember we had a break-in, and I'm like, these people, like, and you hear stuff like, "Oh no, like you stay in town," because I stayed in the town part of Cradock. Like, "Oh no, you stay in town, surely you must be rich." I'm like, that doesn't actually translate. The bank owns the house. Like what you're describing, Leigh-Ann, like we work hard to get everything we have. So you coming in and breaking into my house because I'm supposedly richer than you, that doesn't fly, but it's terrible, man. It's a terrible mind thing that Gareth put on his mark on.
Manzi says, it was lost in the language. There's a township culture that during the festive season, people say, loosely translated, "I'm asking for Christmas. Why you never give me Christmas?"
I just told you about this.
So Bakh'abantu was telling me about this because there are different things about Christmas that they do in the townships to anywhere else, and largely and loosely that black people do as opposed to the way white people do it. But it also feels to me like there is a lost in translation element here, although we'll get to Panyaza Lesufi in a moment. That is such a crap excuse too, because it is not then, if you cannot articulate your problem or make sense, you cannot then blame the people who are hearing that for not understanding you. Like, it is your responsibility to make yourself understood, right? So if and this is again like parent-child stuff. So you can't say the thing because English isn't your first language. So it's the person who is English's problem to try and understand you when you're the one who brought the problem.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now again, you're in this parent-child relationship where the one person has to not only try to understand you when maybe you don't speak that language very well. But then if you don't communicate your ideas properly and they get confused, it's also their fault.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Exactly.
that's not.
This I was having a
Panyaza Lessufi, let's just deal with him quickly, because this asshole, he's at a town meeting somewhere, obviously campaigning for the ANC ahead of the elections next year, and he basically exonerates everyone from paying for their electricity. He says we're scrapping all the debt. Listen to him. Here he is. He talks about just scrapping the debt, and then afterwards, Bakh'abantu and I were like so furious. Afterwards, he tries to say, oh no, it's because you guys didn't understand properly because you don't speak English as well as I do, or something like that. Listen to this.
We are happy that national government has agreed. All the people that were owing ESCOM for years, all those debts have now been officially scrapped, and no one owes. So we've championed that. We are starting on a new slate, all of us. Especially, and Mazieko, it's ESCOM, it's not municipality. We are encouraging all the municipalities that are run by the ANC to do the same and scrap the debts of everyone that is owing. We are serious of winning this election. Very serious about it. So that's the debt management.
So he says very clearly, all the debts that have been owing for many years, we have decided we have scrapped them. In other words, not we're going to, we have. And then people cheer because they go, oh, thank God, because I owe so much to my rates and taxes bill that I haven't paid. And that's hanging like a sword of Damocles over my head. I would also be cheering if I were in that crowd. But he's lying. He's lying. That's not what's
Gareth,
happened.
he's not lying, Gareth. He's saying linguistic errors sometimes occur when one tries to simplify complex government policy. And the public just fails to understand. The poor public just fails to understand.
So he's saying that the audience didn't understand him.
Yeah, no. We didn't understand, Gareth. Like, you're still not understanding.
What's difficult to understand about all the debts that have not been paid? We are scrapping. Yay! He knows what's going on because they're cheering.
He's serious about winning this election. Yeah.
Didn't he think at that moment, if he truly was trying to communicate something else, and I'd still like to know what it was he was trying to communicate, because he doesn't explain that. Linguistic errors. So when they cheered, what did he think they were cheering for? Because they clearly knew what they were cheering for. What was he trying to say, that this asshole, right? What was he trying to say?
How does he live with himself? Surely he's had to look back at this clip at some point. And if he hasn't, then why isn't he being brought to book properly? And why isn't there a meeting about this? And them showing him the video of what he said.
Are you high?
What I hear, Leigh-Ann, you want a commission of inquiry on this matter.
Yes.
But like, what are you trying to say, Gareth? What you're trying to say is why you never give me.
Exactly. When I go up to Panyaza Lessufi, I'm going to go, Panyaza, why you never give me?
Why you never give me? Give me electricity.
Right. Exactly. I don't know. So Pablo says, we live in one of the most unequal countries on the planet. Is that not enough, guys? Pablo, you socialist, listen here. Famously, I think it was Ben Franklin who said, countries that prioritize equality over freedom will end up with none of either. Countries that prioritize freedom over equality will end up with more of both. And he goes on to explain exactly what he means, but I'm not here like a thesaurus this morning to be used to quote. Not thesaurus, a book of quotations. But what I recall about that and why it's true is that this impossible goal of chasing equality. It doesn't, as I said earlier, if you gave everyone in the country R1 million, within a week, you would have inequality again. Because the people who spent it all in the first week would be waiting for their next million, and the people who saved it would suddenly be evil because, oh, look at them, they saved their money. Why you never give me?
Yeah.
Right?
There's even a famous parable of like what you just described, Gareth, about giving everyone $1 million and then coming back a week later, where Jesus told this parable in the Bible. It's even in, like what you're describing is not just Ben Franklin. It's something of human nature to the point where it's written in the book that most people in this country hold dear.
I think you're referring to the Matthew principle, the Pareto principle, right? The 80-20 rule.
No. There's what the parable goes
those who much is
servants.
given, much more will be given, basically.
Yes. No. Not there's not just that. There's like a parable where he gives like the different servants different amounts of talents, and then he comes. Right. The master comes back after a while and then observes their work. And then there's just this one who dug a hole and hid it, and then he's like, "Oh, you're fired, basically, because you didn't do anything because you were so scared and whatnot."
Right. Well, I think we must have shirts made with "Why you never give me."
Why you never give me cliffcentral.com.
Right. Don't you think? Then people don't have to say it. They can just point to the shirt. And there's no linguistic error.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what you're on about. Let's turn our attention to a little bit of sport this morning. And to help us to go through some of the weekend's results, here's Ryan. Hey, producer Ryan, what's up?
Yo, how's it going, guys?
Good. Okay, so tell us what happened over the weekend that we missed.
Cool. So let's kick off with the cricket. The T20 South Africa versus India was abandoned due to rain. So the next game is on Tuesday. In rugby, Cape Town Sevens, the Blitzboks finished 6th. Argentina won the men's trophy and Australia won the women's trophy. And for the Investec Champions Cup, or formerly the Heineken Cup, should I say, the Bulls beat is it the Saracens or Saracens?
And I saw Ben yesterday. He was so upset. He was like furious that Loftus couldn't pull a crowd.
This is the thing, right? You had the whole chat on Friday, and he's like, "Oh, how was it so empty?"
No,
I don't know what.
All those people in the Oos Paviljoen were very, very disappointing. He said, "Did they all pass out before the rugby even started?"
I think they were at the Hey Neighbor Festival. Everyone.
Wasn't Kendrick also in?
Yeah, Kendrick was there. There was no way.
And let me just say that I wasn't there for it, but the Cape Town Sevens looked damned cool, and people dress up, and it's just like a big party. So well done there.
Yeah, no, that looked like something to go for. Cape Town must have been buzzing. Then we have Leicester, who beat the Stormers 35-26. Now, moving on to Premier League, horrible weekend. Very weird weekend, actually. Crystal Palace lost to Liverpool 2-1. Man United lost to Bournemouth 3-0, which was embarrassing.
Can Man United just quit?
Yeah, that's a whole situation going on there. Aston Villa beat Arsenal 1-0. Man City beat Luton Town 2-1. Chelsea lost to Everton 2-0. And Spurs beat Newcastle 4-1, which was pretty crazy as well. Very upside down weekend. Moving on to the Dunhill Championship, the play suspended in final round resumes at 9 o'clock today. So go check it out. Louis Oosthuizen and Carl Schwartzel. What's it? I forget how to say that.
What?
Under 16.
Yeah, under 16.
Don't feel linguistically challenged this morning.
I do feel linguistically challenged. You see, golf is not my thing at all, but you can go check that out.
Here's a question, Ryan. You said the Premier League was a very upside down weekend.
Yes.
Explain.
Because Arsenal lost to
Arsenal suck.
Well, Arsenal have been dominating the league. What do you mean?
We also lost, like Man City also lost to Aston Villa. So Aston Villa clearly is on.
Won this weekend. Man United lost 3-0 to Bournemouth.
Man United's been losing this entire
Chelsea,
season.
Chelsea
is also like all you're describing are losers, Ryan. And all I'm hearing from your side is
weird.
Wah.
It's a weird weekend for me.
All right. But this is not a chance for you to pile on each other because your favorite team won or lost. But I think that's what we do in sports results. So actually, I probably should have let you carry on for a little bit longer. But anyway, this is brought to you by Super Bets. And of course, Super Bets is that's where we play to make sport that much more of a thrill for you. And you can always go along and register. If you haven't done that already, I encourage you to do it ASAP because it's loads of fun. We've all had a really wild time. Ryan's won some money. I mean, you've done okay. You've actually done pretty well.
The most successful person in Cliff Central at betting.
You are. You're actually you're the most Super Bets supports responsible gambling. Strictly no under 18s. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation's toll-free counselling hotline is 0800 006 008. And follow them on cliffcentral.com. Click through to their page. You'll even get some bonus money if you signed up for the first time. Awesome. Good stuff. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
Very good. Producer Ryan's sports report sounds like me doing an unprepared Afrikaans speech in school, says Mash. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, those things were rough. Yeah, those things were rough, Gareth. Yeah. Bucky, come speak. Yeah. Like, guy, give me zero, man. yo, it was rough.
The humiliation, horrible.
Ryan, the last time Arsenal won the league was 2004. All right. Very good. So I do want to go to some other things here quickly because you mentioned how, like Christmas is different if you grow up black to white, and that interests me. So we were starting to talk about this just before the show kicked off this morning. But it sounds to me like Father Christmas is more like Krampus in some parts of that community. Huh?
Yeah, like Father Christmas. Yeah, Father Christmas. Guys, Father Christmas was weird. Like, it used to happen so weird because you used to watch the movies, right? You see like snow and whatnot. So snow was always a foreign concept because it's bloody hot in South Africa. Yeah. And then and then my aunt just told me those stories. Like, back in the day when we grew up, used to watch the sun rise, and then like this guy would come, and then I'm like, this sounds like a ghost story, right? And then like, if you really get the most money from Christmas, like this whole give me Christmas thing, you go house to house, you're trick-or-treating, you're in your best clothes. It was just so weird. But all I know is we never saw Father Christmas. So which is why I opened today saying that Father Christmas hates black kids. Because we were always there for Father Christmas, but Father Christmas was never there for us.
I used to, as a kid, that we still even had like Black Father Christmases in the malls and things. So that was never a big deal.
Like that's gotta be so intriguing. Like what, he had the white beard and everything. Like we had Stumo, Tina. We didn't have Father Christmas, we had Stumo.
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 Well, I don't know that you could say that Father Christmas hates black people, because that would be, I mean, if Father Christmas is racist, then we're really in a lot of trouble. Because
no. Saint Nick.
If there's anything in the world that is like poisonous, it is racism. And if Father Christmas is poisonous, we're fucked. We're properly fucked.
Dude, do you know the war on Christmas in America?
What's the war on Christmas?
Oh, no, you're not allowed to say Christmas. Yeah, like, so America's super woke, right? Yeah. So you're not allowed to say Christmas because that implies a connotation of Christianity and whatnot.
Happy holidays.
Exactly. And happy holidays. Exactly. Leigh-Ann's on board with this stuff.
She knows the stuff.
I do work for American brands, and so and it's so, it's the funniest is, and this probably backs up what you're saying, Bakh'abantu, about people's concept of Christmas and the fact that it can seem completely foreign in certain cultures. The translation of marketing material that we receive from the USA and the Northern Hemisphere in general, where we have to now localize this and internalize it almost and make it good for South African consumers and African consumers in general. None of their marketing material works here if you have to think about it. We don't have the snow. We don't have the pine trees, the snowflakes, the Christmas decorations. Every single Christmas decoration we have makes no sense in this context. Yes. Excuse the dog again.
The dog is agreeing with you. Don't worry.
So, I mean, what are you left with when you strip this Northern Hemisphere concept of Christmas down to what actually happens in Africa? You're left with nothing. Perhaps a handmade beaded star. That's about it.
Okay, so that dog is definitely like it's looking for something. So I
She's very
think we've
needy.
got a lot of. I think we've got a lot of South Africanisms when it comes to Christmas. You know, a lot of South Africans braai on Christmas Day, for
Yeah.
example. So we don't do like turkey and gammon. We do it in our family, but a lot of people braai. A lot of people, it's like lying in the sun, being at the pool. Watermelon. Watermelon's a big part of Christmas, right? The gifts we do. You can't take Christmas, and this is why this whole war on Christmas thing. You know, I get irritated by both the people who are like massively in don't take the Christ out of Christmas, and if you're not a good Christian, you can't celebrate Christmas, and they try to make it this sad religious festival where you have to, you know, like spend hours and hours in mass, and you mustn't enjoy yourself because it's
Yes.
actually like moment where you have to be closer to God. Like, don't over religionize it. First of all, those people irritate me. And then the other group of people who want to absolutely remove Christmas from everything and make it happy holidays, and like then it's accessible to everybody, but it means nothing to anybody. You know, that's also
Yeah.
irritating. It's like, I call it Christmas. I know what it is. I love it. It's a feeling. It's a time to be with family. I don't really care about the gifts, and I don't really care about whether there's snow or not. That's not something that bothers me. To me, this is the greatest time of year, and you get to be with people who you really love. You get to sing Christmas songs, which are all awesome. I mean, I don't find it at all ironic that I end up singing about the snow and you know, how you got to have a
Dashing
fire.
through the snow.
Yeah, I don't find that. I don't look at that and go, "Oh my God, what am I singing here?" Like, it's just part of Christmas to me. And of course, it doesn't make sense. If you came here from the Northern Hemisphere and you saw the way that we sing their songs and do their stuff and have their Christmas trees and all that, you'd think these people are insane.
Yeah.
But to me, we've got our own version of how
Yeah.
this all works, right?
Did the
And
dog
I
make
like
it inside the house?
Leigh-Ann, there's the dog.
What? Oh,
Did
Where's
the
the
dog
dog?
make it
Yes.
inside the house? Oh,
Yeah,
like
Oh.
he got tired of looking for Father Christmas outside.
it's a big dog.
Yeah, that's a big, beautiful dog right there.
she's a Cocker Spaniel, not that big.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, there we go. Bit of love and attention. All right.
Like she has one question for you, Leigh-Ann. Why you never give me?
Yeah.
I avoid Christmas, says Belladonna. There's always someone at the table. That's someone. Yeah, but of course. Yeah, otherwise, you would never talk to half the people in your family if you know Christmas didn't roll around once a year and force you to sit together. Huh?
Sure.
What do you like about it?
I like the food. I'm there. Granted, I did open this by saying I want to lose weight, so I don't know how I feel about. But like for us, Christmas has always been about food, about family. Yeah, we do go to church, and then it's like, oh, that's the like most depressing 2 hours ever, right? But like after that, just food and just the family vibe, just being with your family, just talking, man, catching up. That's the Christmas spirit right there. That's the only thing that we have.
And you, Ass?
So I'm not going to be embarrassed about my heritage. I have English and Scottish heritage and Dutch, and fittingly so, we do celebrate Christmas in the Northern Hemisphere spirit with turkey and gammon and roast potatoes and vegetables and all of that. We often eat these things cold, and we have them with a lot of salads, especially with it being hot here. We spend the day in the pool. We have lots of wine and Christmas drinks, the puddings and all the rest of it. A fun time. We sharing gifts. We reflect on the year. And that's what I love about it. And, you know, all the preparation that goes into it, it just, for 364 days, you're using the same table mats and trying to just get by in life and do your due diligence of the day by eating your 3 meals or whatever and trying to be together as a family. And then all of a sudden things change on this one day of the year where things are special. The decorations change and you just feel holiday vibey.
I had this argument with my sister-in-law the other day. She's like, "Why do we do the same bloody thing every year for Christmas?" And I said to her, "Because it's like our tradition."
It's
What
traditional.
it's about.
She didn't understand this. She's like, "No, but why don't we do a prawn braai?" So I said, "You can do a prawn braai on any other day of the fucking year. Why would you need to spoil this day just because you want a different menu? Then bring your own food in a Tupperware if you're going to be that way." I mean, she doesn't seem to get that it's not about the food, right?
Yeah.
It's not about what,
Mm.
like again, I don't like hanker for gammon all year long. And like, oh, I really love that gammon. And turkey isn't even that good. I mean, frankly, I prefer chicken, but it's a thing we do for Christmas. So you do it. It's cool. I love it.
Yeah. It's not like on the 22nd of February, somebody breaks out the turkey, gammon, and roast potatoes.
No.
You know,
Oh, I
it's never
really
going to
didn't wait.
happen.
So let's get to Dr. Hanan because we've got to talk about something which we raised the other day, this idea of discipline and self-control versus impulsive behavior. And he's on the line. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Good. So Doc, we started this conversation that came from people like just exercising a complete lack of self-control, and then obviously feeling sorry for themselves because things don't go their way, or they haven't lost that weight before the festive season, which Bakh'abantu and I were talking about earlier. And then this idea of impulsiveness, the idea that, occasionally everybody, even the most disciplined people, they sometimes indulge because it feels really good to do that. It's like you have to sacrifice now so the future you can have a better life. But that's not always very easy for people, and we're not actually built to think that long term. Or am I wrong?
No, we are built for immediate gratification, and if you ever try to compete against the thing that gives you that satisfaction right here, right now, well, you're fighting your biology. That's why if you give a child a sweet, something that he desires right here, right now, versus tell them they can save it for later and have maybe double later, then the child will naturally choose the sweet right now. Have you guys heard of the famous marshmallow experiment?
Yes.
So
tell people in case they don't know.
Sure. So what these researchers did is they took young children between the ages of 3 and 7, and they put them in a room and they put their child's favorite sweet. In this case, it was a marshmallow. And what they asked the child is whether they are prepared to wait for it. And they actually instructed the child, if you wait for me to come back and don't eat the sweet, don't eat the marshmallow for 5 minutes, I'm going to come back and give you one more. So they wanted to test whether the children could control their impulse and delay immediate gratification. And as we expected, 80% of the kids ate the marshmallow. And when we followed the 20% that waited, the one that had impulse control, we found that they were much more successful in life, better health, better relationships, fundamentally better financial health. They had better marriages. They were just on the path to a better life. They were happier. Now, interestingly, and this is really a kicker, what we found is the children that ate the marshmallow, when we watch them back on camera, these are the 80%, they would look at the marshmallow, stare at it, and close their eyes, and then reach out, and then hold back, and then reach out, and then touch it and smell it, and eventually they ate it. So they gradually, their almost impulse control bucket just kept on being depleted, and eventually they had no willpower and they ate the marshmallow. At the 20%, these super duper amazing kids, what they did is they got up from their chair and they started distracting themselves with either toys or other things in the room. But here's the interesting part. We brought back just the 20%. We brought back just those super duper amazing kids that could control their impulse. We brought them back into the experiment. The only difference this time, we told them the same rule set. Wait 5 minutes, you'll have one more if you waited for me. If you don't wait for me and you eat the marshmallow, then you can't have any more. But here's the difference. Remember, these are just the 20% of the kids, these strong super duper kids. The only difference is we told them you cannot get up from your seat. You have to stay seated in front of the thing that you desire, the marshmallow. How many of those kids do you think could delay gratification now?
Probably
Zero.
a tiny zero, not even a minority. Wow.
They couldn't do it because nobody is stronger than the temptation. Let that be a lesson to all. Nobody is stronger than the temptation. We think strength is about looking at our weakness and staring at it face or dead in the face and saying, I'm bigger and stronger than you. That is BS. That's nonsense. Strength is about looking at your temptation, your weakness, and go, I'm out of here. I'm not competing against you. You know, and the whole thing about impulse, you know, when I see, for example, an alcoholic, they'll come here. I actually had the story the other day. I saw a guy in his mid-30s, an alcoholic, and he said, Hanan, I failed this week. And I said, why? He said to me, because I went out and I was with my friends. I went to a bar and I started drinking. And I said, why do you think you failed? And he said, well, because I could not delay or I could not resist the temptation to drinking. And I said to him, wrong. The mistake was not when you were at the bar. The mistake was not when you were at the bar on a Saturday night. The mistake was on a Wednesday when your friend called you up and said, should we go out this weekend? Because in that moment, you were still empowered enough to say no. Once you're at the bar with your mates and everybody's drinking and party and music, your level of ability to resist temptation is at zero. So just remember, nobody's stronger than the temptation. Everybody has a, let's call it impulse control bucket that eventually gets depleted, and we will all go for the thing that we desire. Strength is not about staring your weakness in the face. Strength is about staring at your weakness and being out of there.
Wow. Okay. So in some ways, what you're telling me is very empowering. I like this because it means, you know what? You have this ability to overcome these problems, but you also must be realistic about the fact that you can't beat them by staring them in the face. You actually have to have a strategy, right?
Definitely, power. That's amazing. That's exactly right. You hit on two very important points there. Strength is not about like I'm bigger than you, because you know people say to me, "But Hanan, I can stare at a marshmallow and not eat it." And my answer is, "Well, that's just silly, because a marshmallow is not your marshmallow. Everybody's got their marshmallow. So for some people it's drugs, other people it's alcohol, other people it's women, other people it's men, other people it's stealing, other people it's whatever. Whatever your marshmallow is, you cannot stare at it and be stronger than it in the long run. It will beat you every time. But to your point, Gareth, and this is very important, I'm a big fan, as you all know, of the term frameworks and blueprints. If you don't have a framework and a blueprint to manage your life, you will be managed. You've got to have a plan, because if you're trying to delay gratification or to avoid temptation with no plan, it will absolutely eat you alive. You have to have a framework, a blueprint, a plan, a game plan, in order to ensure that you have other things to focus on and not your marshmallow.
Sure. Does that help, Bakh'abantu, Leigh-Ann? Anything you want to add to this quickly? Because I think this is a big breakthrough for some people.
No, that is very helpful, Gareth. Especially when Dr. Hanan says stuff like, you need to not stay, like having a framework and a plan. It doesn't help me if I was an alcoholic buying a bottle of gin and looking at it, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to drink. Yeah, that's just setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spot on. Spot on.
And it's not cowardice distracting yourself, finding better things to do, finding better ways of exerting your energy.
You know, do you remember, guys, there was a show at Mnet probably about, I don't know, maybe 20 odd years ago, Temptation Island. Do you remember the old school Temptation Island?
Sort of. It was like they put these people on the island and then they have to refrain from having sex with each other or something.
Exactly. So what happened back in the day, like they bought the most solid couple that would never cheat on one another. They put the one guy on the one side of the island with the 20 most beautiful FHA models. They put the woman on the other side of the island with 20 of the most beautiful guys that they could find for her. And the aim of the game is, do not cheat on your partner. Simple, right? I mean, they came in, they're going, well, we'll never cheat on our partners. And how many of them stayed faithful? Zero.
Zero. But there was also so they added to that. They said, well, we'll give you like, I think it was R1 million or something if you can just stay faithful, right?
Yeah, exactly. There was a prize money, but they couldn't delay gratification. They couldn't
do it. No,
they couldn't do it. Human nature. You know, if you stare at the bottle of whiskey, and if you're an alcoholic, you will drink it.
Unbelievable.
So my feedback here is, firstly, I don't know what's happening with the internet, so I'm hearing this in tiny snippets, but I did hear that eating marshmallows, drinking alcohol, and cheating is bad. So, in other words, my Christmas is ruined.
But Doc, let's just because we have like 2 minutes before we have to go. We were talking about this weird thing with so many people in South Africa about Christmas. It's like, what do I get? What do I deserve? What am I entitled to from everyone else? And it's sometimes people who have no relationship with you at all, like, you know, the homeless guy on the side of the road or whatever. Are you compelled to be helping everybody and giving everybody things at Christmas, even if you have nothing yourself?
You know what? This whole thing is, what's in it for me is, I have very little patience for that, because nobody owes you anything. That's the truth. Right. And the reason why people say that's so insensitive. As a matter of fact, it's insensitive to give people the mindset that you deserve the world, or that you deserve X, Y, and Z from the world. The world owes you nothing. Be empowered. Take responsibility. If you want to earn something, if you want to own something, go and get it. Where have we gone, and how have we moved away from the self-responsibility to go out and chase your own dreams? Be responsible. You know, on the one, there are two sides to the coin of freedom. We all want to be free, but on the other side of the same coin is responsibility. You can't be free if you don't take responsibility to go out and own your stuff and earn your stuff. And the moment you give the world the power to go, what do they owe me? How do they make my life better? How do they make my life easier? Then you're giving your power away to everybody else. And can you control anybody else? Of course not. You can only control yourself. So take responsibility and go, what can I do to make my life better? If you want A, go and get A. Nobody's stopping you. If you want B, go and get B. And if someone's stopping you, work around it, work through it, but take responsibility.
Spot on. All right, Doc, that's all we got time for today. I love it. Take responsibility, and that goes for people who are trying to control their impulses as well. Very good. Yeah. Don't put yourself in situations where you're going to have to test your impulses, because they will win.
They have every time.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, Doc, have a lovely day. Nice to speak to you.
See you. Bye.
All right, very good. There's Dr. Hanan Bushkin, who is our resident shrink, and he joins us on a Monday and helps us work out our own problems. I just thought that was really empowering, the idea that there aren't these superhuman people who can overcome every impulse. They're not better than you. They're not better than you. They're just better at managing the situation that they're in. I mean, that story with the kids, the clear thing that I hadn't heard before was when they told them to sit down and not do anything. And then none of them could do it. Right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be back in just a moment. It is 7:00. We've got a fascinating guest coming on. Plus, Leigh-Ann has a monster story for us, which is going to be gripping. So at 7:30, we'll talk to Dr. Hestelle van Staden. She's just written a brilliant book, and she is one of South Africa's leading forensic pathologists. I know how everybody loves when we have blood and gore and murder. CSI.
True crime, baby. True crime.
That's right. We're going to talk to her about her new book, which is called Blood Has a Voice. And we'll find out all about that in the next hour. Plus, Leigh-Ann's monster story, Krampus, Bakh'abantu, and Father Christmas Me. All of that and more on the way. Don't go anywhere. CliffCentral.com on a beautiful Monday morning.
Up next in the Auto Trader podcast.
Anyway, so this is the last episode of the year. So I thought maybe we could kick off the episode the same way we do every single year for the last 2 years now, by speaking by an armored vehicle. I don't know why that keeps happening, but last year, literally the last episode we did, we spoke about an armored vehicle.
You're kidding.
And right now, we had I think it was Armamax or one of our dealerships we're talking about armored vehicles. So I thought maybe we can talk about the car that we're currently what the cons team is reviewing, which is the G400 Stronger Than Time, the G-Wagon. And I heard you're going to be driving it, actually.
Yes, so I'm going to be taking it home today.
Yeah.
Apparently, this car weighs about 3 tons.
Yeah, but just about 3 tons.
3 tons, and the armoring of the vehicle is about 1 ton.
Yeah.
So the vehicle naturally is about 2 tons. This adds another 30% to the car's weight.
Yeah.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
When I sweat a lot when I exercise, do I lose weight?
No.
There you go.
Yeah, I remember in the 80s we were all wearing sweatpants.
Yes.
And you see people
And
running
sauna
with these plastic.
and
Yeah, no.
exercise and going
It's
to
really
the
good
sauna
for
and-
detoxification, you know, for your skin health and sweating out toxicity. But no, it's not going to. It's not fat,
But
unfortunately.
isn't it more thermal regulation as well?
You might overheat and pass out, but no, it's not going to solve an overweight issue in the long term, for sure not.
That was the T Health Show, empowering you with knowledge. Download all previous episodes on your favorite podcast platform. The T Health Show is brought to you by T Clinic.
Okay, we are back. I don't know, Leigh-Ann is having some internet issues, but she'll be with us in just a moment or two. And she's going to tell us all about these monsters. They've discovered it's the skull of a colossal sea monster that they found in Dover in the UK. And she's even got pictures for us, which are horrible. Horrible. I had nightmares. I saw this last night and I was like, I don't want to sleep thinking that these things existed. Luckily, they don't exist anymore. They used to.
Is this Nessie, perhaps?
It was a whole lot more scary than anything they told me Nessie might be. But didn't Fikile Mbalula say to us last week, and I hate talking too much politics on any given day, but didn't he say last week that the ANC is not bankrupt and that they don't owe anyone money? And then apparently their bank accounts have got less than 100,000 in them at the moment.
Yes. Less than 100K. And they owe more than 150 million to for stuff they got, Gareth. This is another thing, back to the entitlement thing. This company provided a service to you guys, and you guys can't pay them the bare minimum. Just pay them for what you guys got. They tried to challenge this thing up until the Constitutional Court. I heard you talking about this last week. I'm like, they tried to challenge this in the Constitutional Court, again, abusing government power because it's not a constitutional issue. This is, you guys don't want to pay, but hey. And they failed.
You never give me?
Why you never give me? That's what that's what this as Zuluini should be saying. ANC, why you never give me?
Why you never give me? But I'm telling you, this is again, we're back to this entitlement, this weird thing. Because you can imagine an ANC meeting with the NEC or the top 6 or whatever they call themselves, all getting into the room and these guys are being so mean to us. Why won't they just forgive us our debt, like Panyaza said on the stage? Just forgive it. We don't want to owe money. Scrap. Yep. And then they're upset that these, that this company wants their money. Why you never give me?
Why you never give me?
But with that tone of voice, it's like, oh, You know,
That is good.
like you're really letting me down here. You know, this is very sad and difficult. I thought we were friends.
Exactly. It's literally that. I think that's how the conversation went down.
I'm telling you, that's how it goes. All right, so Ass, you've got a really, I hate this because I saw the pictures last night before I went to sleep. This monster that they discovered. And
Well,
you actually spoiled my night. I didn't sleep properly because of this damn thing.
so yes, this is the pilosaur, let's call it. This is something that actually existed. Its skeleton has been found. It's one of the dinosaurs that we perhaps didn't know existed. But the BBC is making a huge thing of it, and rightly so, and putting together an amazing documentary. I've seen some of the highlights with David Attenborough, who has been, you know, he gets drawn into any new discovery. I don't know how he still does it. He's pulled from coast to coast, from desert to desert, forest to forest, to find out these new discoveries.
And everyone's thinking, just give the guy a break. Like, let him. How about he's in his 90s? He wants to retire, and they're like, "Oh, we found this amazing thing." Pull David out of mothballs. David's like, "I don't want to do this anymore. Leave me alone." Poor guy.
I'm here in my bed.
But did you call it? You call it a pilosaur? Because I know that there's this person I know who suffers terribly from piles, and he often goes, "My piles are sore." Is that what it is?
Pliosaur.
Oh, pliosaur. Okay, well, please get it right, Leigh-Ann. You called it a pilosaur, and there are a whole lot of people who suddenly were worried about their assholes.
So, okay, so you can picture the Dorset cliffs, right? In the UK, those majestic drops of land that just fall into the ocean.
There we go.
And as they're digging away at those, they're discovering more and more hidden secrets that we didn't know about from millions of years ago. And this enormous, colossal sea monster has been extracted from the cliffs, and they're known specifically as the Jurassic Coast part of Dorset, in this area.
Well, why that's such a good place to find fossils like this is because it's sedimentary rock that's being etched away by the sea over millions of years. So it exposes different layers, different strata, and it allows you to see the fossils much more easily than if you had to just dig where there's solid ground. You'd have to hope you hit something, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this image that we're looking at now, imagine having to dig that deep in order to find something. And here we're being gifted the opportunity to dig into the side of these cliffs and find these amazing discoveries. So yes, it was a very treacherous time trying to get to the entire collection of bones that make up this sea monster. But it has now been completely extracted, and the entire process has been filmed, and it's ready in a packaged documentary for us to watch from the comfort of our own sofas.
Okay, but cut to the chase. This monster itself. Now, this is where so the first picture that Leigh-Ann sends me is this one. All right, so I think this is from a movie or something. But this is it, right? That's
it's
the
a
creature.
Recreation.
It's a recreation.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's something that it's beyond what we could imagine lived in our oceans. I mean, the worst thing that we can think of in our oceans is probably a great white shark.
Sharks.
And this thing would have bitten a great white shark in half and had it as a snack. It's like an enormous crocodile. But yeah, massive, absolutely massive. So the facts are, it was apparently roaming around 150 million years ago. It's one of the most complete specimens of this type ever discovered. The skull itself, just the skull, will be featured in this David Attenborough program on New Year's Day if you're in the BBC. I mean, on the BBC if you're in the UK. But it's would typically eat dolphins, sharks, all of that sort of thing. It's
I think it would just eat
absolute-
anything it wants.
Yes.
The answer is,
Basically.
what does this thing eat? Whatever it
Everything.
wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a monster. So if you can't watch this on YouTube, so let me try and explain what it looks like to you. It's like a cross between a shark and a crocodile. That's probably the only, but way, way bigger. Really, really frightening looking thing.
Basically,
And-
looks like a megalodon.
Yeah, well, it makes all those movies with megalodons and things just sound stupid because this thing is way worse than a fish. You know, like this is a dinosaur. It's a sea monster. That's the only way to put it, right, Leigh-Ann?
Absolutely. 10 to 12 meters long, 4 powerful flipper-like limbs. It could propel itself through the water at high speed. It was the apex predator of the ocean. So yes, I think if it just yawned, it would swallow a whole lot of stuff.
Look at those teeth. It's horrible. That's where they found it in the rock there. And then look at this. They did a comparison of like the bite force of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a pliosaur, a saltwater crocodile, lion, dog, and human. So we can do about 700 newtons. And remember, your mouth muscles are your strongest muscles in your body, right? So they can apply a force of 700 newtons. You have to multiply that. A dog obviously can do more at 1,000. A lion, 4,000. Then you've got a saltwater crocodile, which is pretty much the most dangerous in terms of this bite force of any creature that's alive today. 16,000 newtons, but this thing is easily double that at 33,000 newtons. And then you get a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is like 45,000. What horrible things. And remember, that thing is doing that underwater.
Yeah.
You have resistance.
It's absolutely fascinating and terrifying. Yeah.
Look at these teeth. So that's one of its teeth. Look, it's serrated, the starters. I mean, this is a nasty thing, and that tooth is bigger than that whole hand. That guy's holding it. It's bigger than his hand. And look at how they're arranged. It is terrifying. These teeth overlap. I'm sorry. When people say, "Oh, it must have been fun to live at the time of the dinosaurs," no, it wasn't.
So the reason why those teeth have ridges, these ridges would have helped it to pierce the flesh quite quickly, but the ridges are there so that it can release its bite really quickly, so that it can go in for a second rapid attack.
Carl says it's always women who find these discoveries. They love digging up the past. Oh, man.
Got to live in fear of something, right? But yeah,
I swear,
I can't wait to see the documentary. Let's see what else these cliffs can dig up for us.
I swear, Leigh-Ann, I used to be very fascinated into dinosaurs like every other boy. And it got ruined for me when I realized, dinosaurs are the ancestors to birds. I'm like, and then the most accurate recreations now have them with feathers, like the Tyrannosaurus Rex has feathers. I'm like, I don't know, guys. I'd rather keep my scaly wild lizard thing going on.
That's your vibe.
It's pretty insane.
I don't like seeing these new monster discoveries. We have enough monsters, okay? And we'll hear about human monsters with our guest in just a short while, because that I think is going to blow some people's minds. But then there are a couple of other stories that we do need to look at. Apparently X, according to Elon Musk, will reinstate Alex Jones after a poll of users. People were like, no, Alex Jones, who's been accused of dis and misinformation, he's a dangerous lunatic. He basically said that those the one school
Sandy
shooter
Hooks.
was like a psyop. Sandy Hook, that's correct. He said it was basically like a psyop. Meanwhile, there are parents who lost their children who sued him, and supposedly they've just sued him into the ground. He has no money left. But people in a poll, Elon Musk asked, should we bring him back? And 70% of the people voted in favor of bringing him back. So people want mis and disinformation. They say, bring it on.
I disagree with this. I disagree with this. This man is proven. The amount of damage that he has done in America, again, to specifically the people that listen to him, this man is basically a psycho with no heart. I don't think he should be given a platform like that. But again, not my company, and people want it, I guess.
Yeah, I think isn't the solution to bad information more information? So
Yeah,
again,
but also
Alex
don't have him there. What do you call this thing? Because he finds, this is the problem with people like Alex Jones and like most conspiracy theorists. They border the truth so much that they intertwine their lies in it, and then it becomes indistinguishable. So like it's like the Sandy Hook thing. He had so many people believing that those people, to the point where these people harassed these families because they believed it was a psyop. And he was unapologetic. And then he comes out in his trial. He's like, no, he was just asking questions. No, you knew what you were doing. And you saw the results of it.
Well, according to Elon, he's back on. And he's going to allow him to continue doing his stuff on X. I don't know. I mean, like, you can't win, right? So if you're
can keep up.
Elon Musk. But if you're Elon Musk, what do you do? Apparently they had a live talk last night. Jones was lied about. Jones was right. This is according to Dave. Yeah, you see, now they're going to be people who say, well, Alex Jones is the only guy who tells us the real truth. And then they're going to be people who say, like Bakh'abantu, that you shouldn't even have a platform, and having him on at all is giving him any space to talk is bad. But I reckon that there is a difference. Like if you force even the craziest lunatic, and I don't think Alex Jones is all there. I think he's probably a little bit insane. But the worst thing you can do is drive him underground, where people will find him on the dark web, or where he has to release secret podcasts that get pushed around on WhatsApp. Who knows, right? But if you do that, that's a lot more dangerous. You're actually making him very powerful then, because you've got all these other people trying to stop him from talking. And then it looks like there's a conspiracy against him, because there is. And then he sounds like he might have something to say. And then people who wouldn't normally pay any attention to him go looking for him.
No, I get what you mean. But then now we know where to find those people.
Paul says, look at how much shit he said that actually came true. Epstein Island, for example, scary. He is batshit crazy. Yeah, he's crazy. But what do you do with terrible information? You let sunlight in on it. You don't hide it. You let the brightest lights and questions come and interrogate that misinformation or disinformation. You don't just push it under a rug and hope it goes away, because it never does, right?
That's true.
And I mean, Matthew's also saying Jones talked about Epstein Island in 2004, more than a decade before it was revealed. Yeah, you see. So I don't know. And then Mapello does make a good point. It is often just people being rebellious. That's why they voted to bring him back. Yeah, it's like when people named that boat Boaty McBoatface. Do you remember? They wanted to just mess with like the authorities, and I get that. It's just unbelievable. John Bad Dog says, I watch Alex. His channel's great. Gets it right 10 years before everyone else. He also predicted things. I mean, okay, so some people clearly are Alex Jones fans. Sanele even says Alex Jones should be allowed to have a platform. It's no one's responsibility for idiots to believe what idiots believe. People must take responsibility for what they allow themselves to consume or do. That is spot on, Sanele.
Correction. He does have a platform. He has his website, but I don't think he should be allowed on the public, unfettered, uncontrolled, unregulated, like Twitter. That is dangerous. That is stoking a fire. That is pouring gasoline on a wildfire that is Twitter already. I don't think you need bad actors like that. But he does have a platform. If you want to go look for it, go to alexjones.co.za.
Okay.
No, like, yeah, and go watch his website thing. I'm not against that.
But you already said quite rightly that X is not a public platform. It's owned by one guy. It's not a public
platform anymore. Yeah, exactly. That's why I said not my company.
Yeah. But there's also the question of, like, so who else do we then have to ban? What if Julius Malema is saying kill the Boer? Must he be left off? What if we have deliberate disinformation like the governments of the world when they were telling us about COVID and how it affected children, for example? What about when they were effectively banning people from saying things about the vaccines?
Yeah.
Now we must ban all those people. Flat earthers. Are we going to go after the flat? You flat earthers, we're going to take you off X because you're talking nonsense. There's a great graphic someone sent me the other day, like Noah's Ark, and it says Noah was a big conspiracy theorist that there's going to be this flood and everything's going to wash away and all the people will drown, and all the fact checkers died in the flood. Right.
Yeah.
So here's a warning. If you are thinking of misbehaving over the festive season, the South African police, according to Minister Bakh'abantu, are geared up to combat crime during the festive season. He says there's an additional 10,000 police officers that will be deployed to crack down on criminal activities. Most of these officers will be stationed in high crime areas across the country. Minister Cele assured the nation that law enforcement is fully committed to safeguarding citizens and their property. You know what this means, right? More police pulling you over for no reason and going, why you never give me?
or taking or shoving your COJ, your City of Johannesburg or any other municipality account in your face and saying, pay up.
Yeah.
Basically.
So he said that they're going to be protecting us. As the holiday season approaches, the minister said criminals intensify their operations, exploiting the festive atmosphere. Well, it's not the festive atmosphere. It's the fact that people are spending and they have cash on them. He highlighted the proactive efforts of law enforcement to bolster resources and counter criminal activities during the holidays and beyond. So knowing our police service, does it make you feel more or less safe that there'll be 10,000 more of them? Less, right?
Yeah, you know where they'll be, right, Gareth? Like, this is my problem with this. Like, crime in South Africa is a constant day problem, right? We're about to talk to someone who deals with crime all the time, right? The worst kinds of crimes, murder. But now, these people will be stationed at beaches, quite on the roads, like you're describing, like checking licenses. Those are not that they're not real crimes, but I feel like people are being killed in the Cape Flats, and like that's a real problem. We know where crime is. We know where these bad areas. Why aren't policemen stationed there 24/7, 365? Why is it special because it's Christmas? It's Bheki Cele flexing his muscles and doing that whole virtue signaling, trying to be visible. Does nothing.
Does right.
It's PR. That's all it is.
No, it's performative. So, I don't know. I mean, we can be sarcastic and say, "Oh, we'd rather have less police than more." But the reality is also, like, these guys are just going to be looking around for a way to get money out of us. That's all.
Yes.
And if you don't have money, then they'll probably beat you up. And if you've come from a foreign country and you don't have your papers and you want to go back to Malawi or Zimbabwe or whatever, then they'll beat you up. And they're just like, it's a mafia. This is a mafia state. That's what this country is. And this guy, this Bheki Cele, I mean, please, like, we need him reassuring us. In fact, that's probably the worst thing that can happen. We feel safer the less we hear from the police. I wonder if he's thought of that. Unbelievable. All right, so let's get into this, because I know Leigh-Ann is going to love this too. And there were a bunch of other things that we won't have time for today, but I want to talk to the author of a book called Blood Has a Voice, and her name is Hestelle van Staden. She is going to join us. She's one of South Africa's leading forensic pathologists. Dr. Hestelle van Staden has witnessed the worst of the violence that plagues South Africa and gives voice to murder victims who can no longer speak for themselves, because her evidence is often the stuff that helps convict really awful people of the crimes that they committed. She's performed more than 7,000 autopsies. I mean, that's probably more than the living people I've been around in my life. And there's a lot that she's seen. There's not a lot that she hasn't. And her court evidence has led to the conviction of numerous criminals. She's featured in the Afrikaans TV series Autopsy, which gives viewers a glimpse of her professional world. So first of all, Dr. van Staden, well done on your book. What a fascinating read that is. Yeah, they're Bakh'abantu. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Over 7,000 autopsies. That's got to be a record.
I don't think so, actually. I think we all do that many. I've just been in the field for a very long period, but I do think we do quite a lot of autopsies compared to what happens in the rest of the world.
Is that just because we have so many murders and unsolved deaths?
Yeah, look, I mean, it also depends on the way any country's law is structured. So, everything we do is actually governed by specific laws. And for some deaths, which we would do autopsies for in South Africa, in the US they wouldn't, or in the UK even they wouldn't. So that also adds to our numbers. But we also we have very high numbers of unnatural deaths, because we do autopsies on not only murders, but any unnatural death. So the person that dies in a motor vehicle accident, for example. But also there's very few of us. So, it just skews it in that direction that we all do a lot.
So you're all a bit stretched. But tell me quickly, let's start at that. Like, what is classified as an unnatural death? Because not everyone gets autopsied, right? Some people just get buried.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Unnatural death in South Africa is either the death due to an application of or the influence of a chemical or physical force. So that would be your murders. That would be, for example, a gunshot wound or a stabbing or a motor vehicle accident. But then there's also any death that would normally be regarded as a natural death, but now due to an act of commission or omission becomes an unnatural death. So that's, for example, the sick patient that goes to hospital and they sit in the queue, but now there's industrial action and nobody attends to that patient dies. So that now becomes an unnatural death. The third one is what we call procedure-related deaths. So that's a person that either dies on the table or hasn't recovered from having a procedure. And then the fourth one is the sudden, unexpected, unexplained death. So the young lady that walks down the road suddenly drops dead. She requires a postmortem. It might, after the postmortem, be clear that, she had, for example, a ruptured ectopic pregnancy, which then becomes a natural death, but she requires an autopsy to determine that.
And is that up to you to decide, or do those things get referred to you and then you help figure out what actually happened? How does it work?
It actually is determined by the police. So what happens is they act in accordance to the law, and a case is basically open, and the SAP 180 form accompanies the body, which then gives us the authority, because I can't simply grab anybody or physically anybody and do postmortem on that person. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the book, because there's some amazing cases in here, and we can go into some of them in a second or two. But how does an autopsy work, and how quickly can you get through most of them? Because you said, you've got to process plenty of these things. If you're looking for drugs, if you're looking for the presence of poison, that kind of thing, how long does it actually take you to do that? How complicated is that process? And how long do you have to spend in a laboratory with a dead body before you can figure out what happened to it?
Gareth, it can be quite complex, depending, obviously, like you were saying, on the type of body we have. I, for example, on Monday last week had a multiple shooting, and I can't remember now whether the person was shot 14 or 17 times. And for every entrance wound, there's either a bullet or an exit wound. So, you can double the amount of wounds. So that took a considerable amount of time. But if you have a relatively I want to say straightforward case where it is something like poisoning you're expecting, we usually do 4 at any given time, 4 autopsies at any given time. And that takes me around 2.5 to 3 hours. But the problem with something like poisoning is, unless you see what we can recognize as a poison, for example, 2-step, which is always in the news, you are pretty much in there blind, and you need to wait in that case for the autopsy, for the toxicology results, which still needs to come back before you can finalize your cause of death. So at the end of that postmortem, you would actually say the cause of death is under investigation. And unfortunately, I have to tell you that at this stage in South Africa, you sometimes wait 12 and 14 years for those results to come back. So, that's crazy. For other cases where it's, for example, a stabbing or motor vehicle accident, you sign out the body right after the autopsy because you can see what the cause of death is. But in a poisoning, it becomes a very complicated story. But it's not a complicated autopsy as such.
Sure. That's there's a lot to take in here. Obviously, when it comes to things like blunt trauma, or do you have to, because we watch these TV shows. I know Leigh-Ann is a big fan of these TV shows, these CSI shows. Like you think someone was killed. you think someone was killed by the stab wound in their chest, because that's obviously the most glaring piece of evidence, is this huge wound right where the heart is. But then it turns out that they were also poisoned, and you don't have time for all of that stuff, right? Do you get to do those kinds of detailed, thorough investigations every time?
Yeah, you do. I always say to my students, you only get what you look for. And I've seen the most amazing natural pathology in people that's died an unnatural death. The cancer that they didn't know they had, or they've got underlying atherosclerosis, something like that. But if you're not going to look for it, you're not going to find it. So we obviously don't do a toxicology on every single body that comes our way unless there's an indication, because there's simply not resources. I don't see the benefit of doing an autopsy on somebody, doing a toxicology, for example, on somebody where there is a cause of death, because that would become contributory unless there's information that comes along that would guide us to do that. Because by doing that, I'm pushing backwards every other single person who does require a toxicology. But, I suppose I'm a bit of a pain. I check everything. I put a knife into everything, and I put or a pair of scissors into everything, and I open every single thing, so that I can have the possible, opinion at the end of the day, and so that I don't get caught out when this does go to court.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about South Africa. So what are most of the cases that you do on a day-to-day basis? The unnatural deaths. What are those? Accidents?
A few years ago, I would have said motor vehicle accidents. At the moment in Joburg, it's actually gunshot wounds. We have had lately a huge amount of gunshot wounds, and a number of those are actually multiple shootings. So, there's no real definition in terms of what a multiple shooting is. It's just a way for us to know that you're not going to spend it's really going to be a long post-mortem. But we're seeing a lot of multiple shootings. I've had people shot 26 times and, those kind of things, or multiple stabbings. But at the moment, we definitely are looking at gunshot wounds as the majority of what we're seeing.
You've seen someone shot 26 times. I mean, that's more than the number of knives that went into Julius Caesar in, 43 BC. That's insane.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. And what we do when we compile a report is it's actually an affidavit. So it's a statement under oath. So I need to make sure that what I'm saying is actually factually as correct as I can be. So what we usually would do with a single gunshot wound is we would do a track. So I would say, this is the entrance, this is the exit, and this is the track that the bullet has followed. But in a multiple shooting, you can't do that anymore, because, there's so many wounds, and they cross over one another, and they're in close proximity often, that you can't actually do tracks anymore, which I suppose saves a bit of time, but it does alter your report.
But doctor, just with this multiple wounds thing, isn't that overkill? Because mind the pun, because you have 27 wounds. Surely this person died from a gun, from the bullet. It doesn't matter which one, or does it actually matter which bullet? Why do you go through that meticulous process?
That's actually it's a very good question, and it's a very relevant question. Because at the end of the day, you need to determine, say somebody was shot in a process where there were two shooters. We can't assume that there was only one person shooting. So it is important to try and determine which of the wounds they were sustained by which bullet, and where it came from, because it also helps you to reconstruct the scene. I've had cases, and I remember specifically it was a police officer that was shot in his office, if I remember correctly. And the question was, the defense is saying that he got up and he still shot the person that had shot him or followed him or something like that. Would that have been possible? So questions like that does become an issue. Or they would say, the person was shot, but you see that he was shot through his spine, and he couldn't have been walking, but the defense is saying, no, he was still walking. So things like that becomes very important. The issue in South Africa is if you act with a common goal, so I shoot somebody and you shoot the same person, we shoot at the same time, but your bullet kills the person, I can also be charged with murder, because at the end of the day, we had the same, there's a common goal. It's like somebody holding down somebody else while a third person rapes that person, both of the people involved can be charged with rape, even though only the one physically raped the person. So things like that also comes into play.
So complex. I mean, Bakh'abantu, you think about the Oscar Pistorius trial, for instance. How many times a person in the law could have walked away from that situation and just said, "Oh, she was shot and this happened." But the angle of the bullet, the way the cricket bat struck the door, the height of the shooter, whether he was wearing prosthetics or not, all of those things that you take at face value upon approaching a crime scene or doing an autopsy, those details, no matter how small, can sway a sentencing, can sway, a judgment when it comes to the end.
So I just want to ask you something before we get into the details of some of these cases, because they are fascinating. And I know that you're a professional, so, you're not going to make things extra gory for no good reason. And you're not going to try and sell us like, a TV fictional miniseries here. So it is difficult to do what you do because, somebody asked in the questions here in the comments, they said, how do you deal with the trauma of all these dead people some of them died very violently. Some of them are young, you sometimes have kids that you have to do an autopsy on. Somebody also asked in the comments about burnt bodies and how is that extra difficult? You're a human being at the end of this, doctor. And even though you take your job very seriously and you do it every single day, and I think you probably could become a little jaded after a while, how do you process all of this as just a person before we get into any of the science?
Gareth, I think one always needs to remember that you are a person, because the minute you start forgetting that, you become very blunted and you actually lose your humanity. And that's the one thing I never want to do. For me, every single post-mortem that I do is a person. It is somebody's loved one. It is somebody's mother or father or brother or whoever. So I think the important thing is that it never becomes just a job and it never is just a body. You must always remember that it's somebody's loved one. But I think it's also it's a bit easier for me because I chose to do this. I didn't become involved in forensics kind of by accident. Not that I know how you do that. But I mean, I studied medicine because I wanted to do forensic pathology. So that's always been my dream, which also makes it easier. But I do think you need to have ways of dealing with the trauma, because it is traumatic what we do. And I think if we deny that, you're simply just lying. So, I play tennis and I cook and I enjoy spending time with my family. But I think deep in my heart, I'll always be a forensic pathologist. It's really part of who I am. But I think you need to be able to take that step backwards. I don't think I'm the most emotional person. I think I'm a left brainer. So that also helps. But you need to be able to take that step backwards, because like you were saying, we do quite a number of autopsies also on children. And we find that the students that do attend we have medical students sometimes attending or law students attending. And that's the one thing they can't deal with, is the fact that we're doing autopsies on children. And I think for everybody, that's a very difficult one. We are expecting, in fact, judgment this morning in the Johannesburg Magistrates Court, where a father and stepmother were found guilty last week, Monday, of the murder and neglect of the father's son. Where I did the autopsy, and we've got a few more coming up, which I did. And I do think, it's the one thing where you need to really be able to take that step back and compartmentalize, which fortunately I think I'm able to do. It's no use you standing next to the body and Leigh-Ann, like you see in the shows, you crying your heart out and, spilling your tears on the body, but you're so emotionally involved that you can't actually look at the facts. That's not going to help anybody. So that's the one thing. And then the other thing is, I think we tend to speak to one another. I've got friends in the police or friends in forensic psychology, forensic pathology. So we speak to one another. And I do think that also helps to, to air what you feel.
Yeah. And you have to talk about it almost so you can just get it out, because otherwise you don't want to go home and just burst into tears. You've obviously got things that you have to process, and sometimes processing that with people who understand, who are going through similar things, that helps.
Absolutely, because I mean, I've said to somebody was asking, do we go for counselling? And the department does offer counselling. I've actually never been to the department's counselling. I've been for counselling twice after I was involved in armed robberies. And somebody was talking about, should one speak to your private psychologist about this? And I said, well, I might actually traumatize her more by telling her what I saw today. So it is, what you're saying is quite true. You need to speak to somebody that actually understands what you're going through.
That's tough. All right. So what are the worst ones for you? Which ones are the autopsies that you hate the most? Either because they're very hard work, or because it's just your least favorite thing to, kind of be dealing with. You're just grossed out by them, or you don't like them, or it upsets you, or whatever.
Well, on the one hand, definitely children, because of the emotional impact that it does have. Certainly, children are always difficult. And I think children, in fact, and old people, I look at some of the old people that come there and they're gagged and bound and murdered. And you think, how horrible that somebody's life, somebody that's probably lived a life where they've contributed to society, and now they're 80 or 90 years old and it ends like this. They are frail and somebody just takes advantage of this. And on the other hand, in children where they really haven't had a chance to actually, to live yet, and somebody, somebody actually comes and does that to them. But on a practical point of view, the guys that work with me will tell you maggots are not my favorite thing.
Oh my
God. Absolutely horrible. So they laugh at me because I sometimes get so grillerig that I actually have to stand away, because nobody and I don't want to freak your listeners out. It's early in the morning, but when you walk over a maggot, it actually punches. So, that kind of thing is the practical side of things. That doesn't work for me. And then something which, fortunately, we don't see maggots every day. But the other thing that I can't stand is actually gastric content, stomach contents. And that's something I've struggled with even since I was a medical student. It is really not,
Oh, boy.
It makes me nauseous.
Rancid.
That is horrific. Oh.
Yeah, so I tend to, so they laugh at me. I never open my stomach over the board where I'm working. I always open it into a container so that it doesn't spill all over my workplace. So I am a bit of a neat freak, even though I'm doing a very horrific job. But stomach contents is also not my best.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Ugh. You got me on both of those. I'm totally sold. I'm not going to be joining up and signing up and coming to do forensic lectures with you anytime soon, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we think it's all glamorous. And I think for me, the reality, talking about reality shows and true crime, and we're often fed these stories in bite-sized chunks. There's an obvious need to get the story across quickly. We see the murder happen. We see the police solving the crime. We see the autopsy results coming in later that afternoon. And we see the person being convicted and going to court the next day. And we don't realize the length of these processes. So, for instance, something that has stuck with me for a long time, I had a death in the family during COVID. And this family member was not discovered in their apartment for a while because of the isolation. I discovered his body in his apartment. And this wasn't a clear-cut case. He had been beaten to beyond recognition. There were bits of evidence all over the apartment that indicated that he was trying to look after these wounds himself. There were also empty prescription drug bottles lying around, as well as alcohol bottles. So we as a family needed some closure on how this person had passed away. The apartment was locked from the inside, so he probably had been attacked while outside the apartment. So it was a very complex case. It wasn't as if it was obvious as to how this person had died. And so in this case, we definitely needed an autopsy. And his body was taken away by the state that night. And we then thought, well, let's leave it for a few months at least for this autopsy to be carried out and for the results to come to us. It's now been obviously since 2020, and we still don't have the autopsy results. And at this point, I had given up until you said what you said this morning about the fact that these things can take 10 to 12 years to finalize.
You're also not going to get the report. I must stop you right there, because simply because of what we do, the report goes to the police. You're never going to get that report, to be quite honest with you. What actually happens in the legal process is that the report gets issued to SAPS, and I hope that it has been issued now, because for a relatively, I don't want to say straightforward, but there's nothing that should really keep up the process unless they found something during the autopsy that that I'm not aware of. But that report should actually go to SAPS, and they then decide who they are willing to give the report to. If it's, in a case like where it's clearly a motor vehicle accident or so, they usually don't have trouble handing that report out to the family. But in murder cases where prosecution still needs to follow, they're not going to give you the report most probably. So that could also be why you haven't received the report. And I think a big part of what doctors do wrong, and I think SAPS as well, is we don't communicate well. We don't actually, nobody knows this. Every family thinks they are entitled to the report because it's their family member. But, if you think about the legal process, then you understand why it doesn't get issued to you. But nobody actually tells you that. And, you're sitting there waiting, and you don't know that something.
Yeah, it's definitely, a lot of it's down to communication. I mean, we only have one point of contact at this point. We have one officer to phone, and he's either not there or he says it's not ready or something like that. But yeah, so that's great to get that clarification.
Well, I don't want to get you into any trouble here, because this, you have to deal with what you have to deal with. But are our police under-resourced? Are our morgues under-resourced? What kind of administrative problems are encountered fairly regularly in South Africa, especially for people who are in forensics, who are just trying to get to the truth? But very often there are processes and timelines and human resources or money or budgets or whatever that become the major stumbling block, right?
Yep, both of them. Both forensics and SAPS are under-resourced, and severely so. And one can understand to a certain extent if you look at forensic pathology. I mean, it makes sense that government's going to spend money on living patients first before spending it on dead patients. It makes perfect sense. For example, we've been sitting in a building that is actually
condemned.
It's a condemned building. Yep.
Yes.
And the new mortuary is in the process of being built, but it has been in the process for many, many years. So you can understand that we are not going to have new air cons. We've been working without air cons for the last 2 or 3 years. So it is uncomfortable, but you can also see, why they are trying to do that. You can't put up a new air con in a building that's not going to be there for much more, for much longer. But in terms of the police, the system does not really work very well. They are often only given a docket after we've done the autopsy, for example, and then they can't attend the postmortem. They are also so overworked. And I mean, I know there's a lot of pressure on the police, and I know there's a lot of people spitting fire about the things that they do. And there are police officers, like in anything, like doctors as well. You get good doctors and bad doctors. You get committed people, you get people that couldn't care less. And the same applies to the police. I mean, if you have watched my TV series, and also one of the cases that I discussed in the book, there's a police officer from Jeppe, Warrant Officer Potgieter. He attends every single one of his autopsies. He's always there. If I phone him, he'll help me now with what needs to be done. And they run with a lot of dockets on the office tables, But there are also the ones that couldn't care less. They do have trouble in terms of attending autopsies because they don't always have vehicles available. or budget is a problem, and they're running from one place to the next. They've got to be in court, but they also need to be at the mortuary, and they also need to attend crime scenes. And I mean, I can't remember, a few weekends ago, he let me know, and I think JP sent us 3 or 4 or 5 bodies just from their station on Monday morning. So, I think they were also severely under-resourced, but not all of it. And I do understand people's frustration with SATs, but not all of them are not interested. There's a lot of very, very committed police officers, and the same on our side, but we are definitely under-resourced, both of us.
Yeah, does it irritate you when you watch these TV shows and you see just like these endlessly well-funded, well-oiled machines? They've got like touch screen TVs in the autopsy. Ridiculous, right? That's not how it works at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, I always say that as well. So everybody watching with me gets irritated with me because I just start jumping up and down and, commenting on, but this is ridiculous. It doesn't work like that. So I irritate all the people around me when watching them.
Have you ever seen one of these shows and thought, yeah, they've actually got a pretty good representation of that?
Well, I've watched Autopsy. That's a pretty good
Autopsy. I was going to say.
Your own show. We know that's not nonsense. Yeah, I mean, obviously.
You know what? Even Autopsy is sanitized because we can't watch it. We simply can't show anything. But there was probably the one that got the closest was, what's it called now? Not Boland Murder. There was an Afrikaans Die Byl. There was an Afrikaans TV series which was but it's a fictional story. And right at the start, they had it a bit closer to what it's supposed to be like. But, they also, it's for the sake of building a good story. Things do go a bit
no, sure.
Wonky.
Yeah, but how many people come to you because they watch these TV shows and they want to be like those people in the TV shows? And they study this because that's their motivation.
I get a lot of comments on LinkedIn or messages via LinkedIn, via social media, that kind of thing, where people have this very weird idea that things work the way that they see on TV. And I mean, I also wish that we could have DNA results in a day or, whatever the case may be. And it doesn't happen. I mean, it simply doesn't happen. You heard me say toxicology 12 years, and then I'm listening to this nonsense on TV, and I'm also panting, wishing it was like that. And unfortunately, we have these youngsters, and they simply don't understand that it doesn't look like that. It's not glamorous. You don't smell nice once we've walked out of the mortuary. I work in gumboots, so it's nothing glamorous at all.
Oh, gumboots, huh? Is that because of all the blood and everything?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I can't get over the smell, Doctor. My workspace is actually behind your building, and just the smell from the crematorium and from that condemned building, it's just terrible.
It's really a problem. I do think it has improved now recently, and I hope you found the same. But we had a huge problem a while back, and a part of that problem is the fact that there's a lot of unclaimed bodies that were stored in Joburg. People didn't come and fetch their bodies. So those bodies eventually moved across to Diepkloof that can assist us with long-term storage or longer term storage. But that's a problem, and especially in summer, you can imagine. And it was our mistake. But the point is, like you were saying, Leigh-Ann, with your family member, sometimes bodies lie undiscovered where they are. So they're already decomposed by the time they get to us. It's not as though they're decomposing in the mortuary. But, that body's already decomposed. And especially in summer with this heat wave, I mean, it was just tremendous. The temperatures which we faced. And temperature is the one driver of decomposition. It's the major driver.
How long can you keep a body if you have refrigeration and all that stuff?
No, that's, if you can actually freeze a body, you can keep it for very, very long. That's not an issue. But remember, even that is governed by law, how soon we should bury if the body remains unclaimed. We've also got at Joburg, we have a human decedent identification program, which we run with SAPS and VITS. There's a few stakeholders where we try and identify these unclaimed bodies via fingerprints, DNA, any other identification methods. because a lot of the people that we see some of them are illegal immigrants, and their families don't even know that they are in South Africa.
Yeah.
Never mind knowing that they are dead. So we try to try and link where these bodies are coming from and try to get them identified so that they can be buried properly. Because at the end of the day, it's a human thing to want to bury somebody, give them a decent burial as well.
Yeah,
it's this whole thing of unclaimed bodies is so weird to me. So there are people who just nobody cares that they died.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows necessarily. They're waiting to be claimed. And how long do you keep a body until you eventually go, well, there's no one coming to get this one. It's been like 10 years. Let's move on.
We actually have 30 days. So there's a whole process. So we take fingerprints at the time when we do the autopsy, and then SAPS also needs to run with the fingerprints and see if they can identify who this person is, if the person is unidentified at that stage. If after 7 days there's no answer, then additional measures needs to be taken. So we take DNA, see if we can find out who that person is. But by 30 days, we are obligated actually in terms of the law to bury that body. So then it becomes City of Joburg or wherever it is. It becomes their responsibility to then bury that person as a pauper. And if the family then eventually is found, the body can be exhumed and reburied. So, but we tend to keep them, I'm sure we keep them a little bit longer just to give the police and the families a bit of additional time. But in fact, we have 30 days and then the bodies need to be buried because it becomes a health issue as well, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's a light question, Doctor. Okay, I don't know if it's light, but so in South Africa, we have a very strong traditional basis and belief system. So how do you have you ever come across one of those cases where they come fetch maybe the spirit from the morgue or rituals or something like that?
Not really. We try to, we obviously allow people to work according to their faith. So for example, very religious Jewish people, the Muslims also want to bury before sunset. So in those cases, we what's the word now? We do we prioritize those autopsies.
You expedite them as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I'm Afrikaans school. We expedite the PM, but to the point that it doesn't influence the process of justice. If there's additional things that we need to do, then then religion needs to take a back seat. But we expedite those autopsies and then release the bodies ASAP so that the families can go ahead and burial. But for example, the very religious Muslim people don't even want their bodies to be autopsied, because you're basically desecrating a body, which they don't agree with. So the law takes preference. So we work according to that. But we haven't really had, what we have had was very religious Jewish people that ask, can they sit with a body? Now, we can't allow them to sit with a body, but we allow them to sit there's like a waiting room in the mortuary where they can sit and wait then and basically keep watch over the body, even though they can't see the body from where they are. But that kind of thing, we try to accommodate people as much as we can, but always bearing in mind that, we can't allow people, for example, at the back or, have any influence on any of the other bodies or on the legal processes.
Yeah. So the law takes preference. So your own spiritual practices have to come second to that, especially if there is a situation where there's an unnatural death and you have to do the proper detailed observations.
Absolutely. All
right, so let's talk about a specific case. I think this is amazing. There's the story of baby Letitia Meyer, whose mother said that she fell from her pram, but that wasn't the case at all, right? And you were very involved in this case. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it was actually a really sad story. Little girl that came in and had evidence of head injuries. And I still remember her little face, and she had a wound over one of her cheeks as well that I actually mentioned in my report that appears to be a cigarette burn. So the case then went ahead, and I was contacted shortly thereafter by Karina Kutsia, who's a senior prosecutor. She's an advocate for the NPA, and it's an amazing. She's just amazing. She floated into my office, and she's got this curly hair, and she speaks so quickly. You need to be very careful to follow what she's saying.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I'm sure this woman looks like she can't prosecute this case. This is going to be quite a story. We're talking of a child murder. And I don't know if you guys can remember, there was a story on TV when we were kids, Mina Moo. And
Yes.
in Moo, there was Karel Straatkat that becomes, or Karel Straatkat becomes Karel Ramkat. And, he's like, he goes into superstar mode. And that's what I saw with Karina. She went into superstar mode the minute you get into court with her. And she was just amazing where she prosecuted this case so well, but never losing her humanity. And I was actually pregnant at the time, and I always thought, this must have been very traumatic for the mother who's being charged with murder, seeing this very pregnant woman waddling into court. And it was around this time of the year, and it was incredibly hot, and I was bothered. And we actually did get a conviction on her, and it was the mother. And the very sad part of it was that she had actually been abused as a child, and she was working as a prostitute. And that was actually the background to this entire story. And she was left in jail for the entire trial. Nobody posted her bail. Nobody actually, I don't want to say nobody cared for her, but she was really a neglected person, which is very sad. And I think that's why she paid it forward and led to the death of her own child.
There's so much horrible stuff that happens in society, and you see how bad some people's lives are. Do you ever despair because you think, oh my God, it's all just such a mess? Like, there's some people who are just so awful. Like, if you would abuse your child and like burn them with a cigarette or whatever, what kind of a sick, twisted world do we live in where this kind of thing can happen to a small child? It's very difficult for you to remain objective, and especially when you yourself were pregnant at the time.
I don't think I'm the despairing type, to be quite honest with you. I think I'm very realistic. I don't think I'm cynical either. But I look at it and I can actually, it's a funny thing. I think I can distance myself from it. I can really compartmentalize, look at it and think, what you're doing is sick. And a lot of what I see is things which are horrendous. Which I wouldn't want anybody exposed to. And I think I mentioned in the book that I arrived at work one day and somebody fell in front of a train or committed suicide and jumped in front of a train. And I was looking at this body and I thought, I'm on a daily basis seeing what nobody should actually ever see. But it's never brought me to the point of despair. I think for me, the point is I'm actually doing something to try and better it and to help making it better. And I think that takes my focus off how horrible it is and rather focus on what I can do about it, if that makes any sense.
Sure. What about Lucky Dube? Because he was shot and killed, and I remember that story, and you actually were you did the autopsy there as well.
Yeah, I was very young. I hadn't even qualified then. I was at forensics for just over a year. It was a Friday morning when I did the autopsy. I'll never forget that. And, it was, I think that's the one thing that will always stay with me when I do an autopsy on somebody that's well known or so, is that it's just another person. Nothing made his autopsy different from the autopsy on the unknown person that also died. But it was quite, I don't want to use the word weird. It was quite I don't know what the right word is. It was quite impactful seeing this person that I'd seen on TV and that I knew about lying in front of me dead on the table. So that was definitely something. But I mentioned in the book as well that somehow pictures got leaked of his body. I don't know whether it was from where it was leaked, whether it was before from the scene, whether it was from the mortuary. As far as I know, it wasn't from the mortuary side, or whether it was at the undertaker afterwards. And I found that so distasteful, and it's something that I think I'll always remember, how unfair it is that somebody's family is exposed to that. They've not only lost their father and their husband and, and us, an icon, but also how much disgrace he was treated in that the photos of his body were leaked. I found that very distasteful, to be quite honest with you. But we got a conviction in that case as well. And the guy didn't know, because we first thought that he could have been shot because it was him and it was maybe a hit or something like that. And at the end, it was simply a robbery gone wrong.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how awful. And really, to lose someone like that. But I agree with you. Like, there's this weird thing with people. They want to see a dead body. I often will be driving on the highway, and you see all these people craning their necks, Doc, to see like a dead body on the side of the road. You're like, guys, if you want to see dead bodies, you can go to the morgue and you can have a good look. They'll you just tell them you're trying to identify somebody who you're
you're there to claim an unclaimed body.
You know what I mean? It's like this morbid fascination, and it doesn't matter how rich or poor or old or young or educated or uneducated you are. And I don't have this fascination at all, so I can't really sound like I'm being judgy about it. But I look at people who drive past an accident like this, and I think, what do you want to see? Like, what are you looking for?
No, it makes no sense whatsoever. I completely don't understand it, I suppose, because I do see dead bodies. But for me, even I would sometimes, I'm just astounded. Look, when I read a book, I want to see the body because I want to see, okay, well, this is the wound. And, for me, it's an academic exercise. But I don't understand people's fascination with gore and guts. And in fact, I've got a major problem with that. I tend to take out photos from my lectures, or so if I use somebody else's lecture and I, use some of their slides, I would take out the photos, even for medical students, which are just horrible, because I don't see the need. And I hope it comes across in the book, because I never thought I want to write something which freaks people out or which is just gory. I mean, that's easy to do.
I read your book, Doctor. Like, you did find that balance where you do speak as a professional, but it also has some heart.
Thanks, Bakh'abantu. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. That's really been my goal, not to freak people out, but to tell the story.
Yes.
Well, listen, I didn't even realize, but we've been talking to you, and I'm so into this. And I'm not one of those people who watches those shows, by the way. I also don't like any of that stuff. But I do like talking to people who are the best at what they do. And there's no doubt that you are a real a star in this world, and someone that we can be very grateful we have in South Africa to help us solve these problems. And I wish you the best with your book. Blood Has a Voice.
Thank you.
Which Bakh'abantu will hold up now so we can see the cover. And this could be, for those people in your family who really love reading stories like this could be the best Christmas present you can get for them.
Yeah.
Stories from the autopsy table. There she is. That is our guest this morning, Dr. Hestelle van Staden. And thank you so much for your time this morning, Doc. I hope it goes very well from here on in. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It was a lovely chat.
Lovely to talk to
Thanks,
you.
Doctor.
All right, everybody. It is 8:10. You see, we went on you got bonus 10 minutes with Dr. Hestelle van Staden this morning.
Gareth,
We'll see you
the
tomorrow.
good doctor's
Why you
already
never
told
give
she's
me?
really busy.
Yeah. Why you never give me? Well, we gave you an extra 10 minutes this morning. Here we go. All right. See you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you.
Love it.
Cheers. Bye-bye.